Well, hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Speed Street Podcast. We appreciate all of you folks being here. The official ending of my season has come upon us. I officially have no more races on my schedule. It's been a crazy last few months. We finished up at the Homestead Miami Speedway, which, boy, am I not sure if I like that track after how terrible my race went. But we had a lot of excitement to talk about from Mexico City, the Formula One race down there. There was quite an IndyCar contingent, being our most famous driver, Pato Ward, was down there in FP1 for McLaren. Really interesting things to look at there. I think we're in a wild time for IndyCar and superstardom, and is Pato our Caitlin Clark? Maybe we'll see. I don't know. That's what some people are saying. So this week we're gonna talk a little bit about that. There's not a ton of IndyCar news, but I'd like to talk a little bit about the truck race and kind of my thoughts on what I was struggling with there, and how difficult really it is to continue to break into that series when you have so little track time. And obviously Haley Deegan mentioned a little bit of it on our show last week. But then we also this week sit down for a little roundtable discussion, a little bit of just a general conversation about everything that's going on in the IndyCar world, the motor racing world, with my friend Kevin Beck. Kevin, if you're new to this show, we sat down with Kevin at the beginning of this year to kind of just get he's very much a Formula One fan, but obviously I've been friends with him now for a long time, and he has been converted into an IndyCar fan as well, watches it consistently, and so good to get his opinion on some things. There's a lot of interesting subjects because he's also, a successful businessman, is smart guy, and knows a lot about just life in general. So it's a great conversation. I hope you stick around for that one because I think it's just good to talk motor racing when we're in the off season. So Chase, how we doing, my friend? Lots been going on. A lot of things happening across the motorsport world, and we're going to have to talk about quite a lot about a few different things.
Yeah, absolutely. Seeing all of the Pato Award hype this past weekend was incredible to watch. We definitely have some proof now. There is very, very valid proof that that Mexico loves Pato, and that everyone in Mexico knows who Pato is.
Yes.
So that's that. No more debates. Aside from that, watched some NASCAR racing as well. Saw some highlights of the truck race, and then the Cup race. Heard around the world, the people calling it the best NASCAR Cup Series race ever. I don't know if I'm ready to go that far. Definitely the best of 2024. Big shout out to 2311 Racing, Tyler Reddick, for getting it done there at the end. Even when, I was maybe rooting a little bit for Denny and Ryan Blaney for personal reasons. So
love that.
Yeah, there was it was a tight race. It was incredible. So watched a lot of NASCAR this weekend, was on Twitter, saw a lot of what Pato did. Pato did a lot of work. He got a lot accomplished within just a few days. And I think that's a great place to start on this show today.
Well, I'm going to start by getting through the truck race first, because I think there's a lot of excitement with the Pato deal, and I want to get to that before we talk to Kevin too. But the truck race in Miami. Now, Homestead was a new track for me, a difficult track for sure, a track that I believe IndyCar should be at. I think that would be an awesome race for IndyCar. An abrasive surface, a surface that wears the tires very aggressively. Again, just 20 minutes of practice before we got into qualifying. And man, I tell you what, I guess I was told that Kansas and Homestead are two probably difficult ones to get into with so little practice, having never been there before. Man, it was a struggle, and there's no other way to put it. I thought at the beginning of practice we were in a little bit better of a spot than I felt at Kansas. An interesting track for sure. Two very different ends. 1 and 2 could run the bottom. 3, 4 could definitely only run the top. A lot of people say you got to rip the fence there, and the Cup race was fantastic, and a lot of people enjoyed the Xfinity race. The truck race, I don't really know if it was good or not. It seemed okay, but I was just at the back the whole time. But it's one of those things that I think it's very easy to judge anyone as I went through many comments after the Haley Deegan interview. A lot of people, very easy to throw shade, but we had a lot of people that listen to that show, so we appreciate any new listeners that we've got here. But boy, I will happily admit that I did not do well in Homestead, and that is for a variety of reasons. It's a lot of driving these trucks. There's a feeling that you have to get used to. There's a feeling that you also need out of the truck, but there's also so many differences in each body and each chassis in these trucks that we showed up with the same chassis that we ran at Kansas, but the body had been worked on a little bit to try to generate a different level of downforce in a certain place. And it, I thought it was better at first, but there's just something about it that I still have not understood yet. And you can tell too, because a lot of the folks there's three folks that I would say, like me and Marco, neither of us were very good at that. And Marco's very experienced at Homestead. He did the truck race last year, but it's a challenging place. And, when you fall a lap down early on, and we did that because I'm loose, just struggling loose. And when these things are loose, you can't really push it any harder than that, or else you end up in the wall. And I even did end up in the wall in the middle of the race. As we're getting better, like you rub the wall as you try to get, find some speed. And I'm like, well, maybe I do need to drive this thing on more of the right rear corner to produce that side force that they call it. And man, it was just a struggle for me. And, every stop we made the truck better. And we were making progress. We were in the position almost for the free pass for the lucky dog. But then the 9 car, who actually ended up winning the race, they blew a tire and they took our lucky dog, which again, obviously makes sense. He won the race. So that's how that works. But it was just such a difficult battle with trying to feel out the truck, trying to understand what I wanted. And, the massive Matt Mills crash in front of me, my teammate, that was like right there. And I just got into the wall a hair there because there was a car that was like buried up my rear bumper that, my spotter, he's like, look, I had to tell you to go a little bit. I couldn't tell you quite yet about that accident or else you would have got taken out. And I'm like, okay, all right. That's respectful and fair. But definitely had a bit of a moment there. But yeah, as we made this truck a little bit better throughout the race, by the time we got to the last set of tires, we were finally running in a better spot. Now, again, that doesn't matter. No one looks at the last stint pace and is like, oh, Connor was actually decent. I know that. We finished 28th. It's terrible. But it was a huge learning experience for me. And I truly believe we just didn't. I don't know what I need to feel out of that truck yet. And it's something that is very foreign to me. I thought I had a very good understanding for it at IRP. We were running really fast there. And the Xfinity car, like at Indianapolis Motor Speedway, like I understood that one, but the truck seems to be something that is a completely different animal. And it has been a real challenge. So again, happy to admit when I was not even close to being in the game. Like I was not even in the race. But by the last stint, and
it's such a free track.
Yeah, once we got to that last stint, though, I was like,
you have to. You don't have grip there. There's not a lot of grip at all on that track, and that's what makes that track so challenging. Is just the fact that you could do so much work to a vehicle, but like that's why it suits the dirt drivers. That's why it suits dirt guys so well. It's because they're used to that, to throwing that car around and being so free.
Yeah, it's just one of those things that I thought I had a handle on it, but I look at other trucks just kind of driving around. I'm like, man, there's got to be something else there that I don't understand, or that I need to get out of the truck that I just don't know. Because for me, I feel like I'm driving at the complete limit of the thing all the time. I mean, I was in the wall because I'm trying to find the speed that I think I need, and like eventually, personally, I don't believe that I had the same amount of grip as a lot of other people, but that's anything that a driver would say, because I tried to drive that thing in there and tried to drive right, and there's using the brake a certain way, there's trying to use the side force a certain way. So again, it is no easy task getting in on an oval, like certainly a 1.5 mile oval in these stock cars of any kind. But I think by the last stint, I was feeling better. And again, if we started the race right when we were finishing the race, would have been in a 10 times better spot. But, that's what happens when you have no practice, no track time. I still think the whole NASCAR deal with no practice is the most absurd thing in all of motorsport. I don't even know why that's a thing. I mean, it's just not, it doesn't allow a race car driver to be the best driver they can be. I think it's just silly. But you know what? Everyone's like, well, it works for some people. And it's like, yeah, obviously, like it's always going to work for someone because that's how the sport is. So again, I think it's silly. But I've enjoyed my time at Nice Motorsports, and there were 4 Connors in the race. I don't know. This is a fun fact. I don't know if there's ever been that many Connors in a race. I don't know if anyone can do the research on that. And I took a picture with all the Connors, but then one of them ended up deciding to be a terrible person and try to kill my teammate by wrecking him on purpose. So probably not going to tweet that photo because it's a little bit awkward now. I thought it was a funny thing, and then turns out one of us ended up being kind of a scumbag. So I don't know these guys very well. I only know Connor Zilish a little bit. I was chatting with him, and I don't know Connor Mozak at all. Yeah, there's some good Connors. I don't know the other Connor that did the intentional wrecking and stuff like that. So
Connor Jones.
I took a funny photo that I thought was cool. But now I'm like, we're gonna probably wait to post that on the internet till that dies down. That was not fun to see for my teammate, Matt. Poor guy had to spend the night in the hospital, big fire. That was not good. But yeah, tough day overall for our team still. You know what I mean? Bailey had a tough day. Caden was fast at first, but still only ended up finishing 16th. It's one of those things that the way that strategy worked out too, if you pitted early, you ended up being all right. We tried to go super long on our set of tires, hoping for a yellow. But of course, there were no yellow. Any truck race that I do, there's never any attrition. So that's just how it works. Any truck race that I watch on television, there's some crazy accidents, yellows, people are all over the place. But that's just how life happens. That's how it works. So yeah,
you balance the series out. That's what that says to me. You're a series balancer. You balance it out.
We balance that sucker right out. So anyway, I appreciate those that supported us there. It was a fun track to experience. I will say Homestead is very unique, and there were some times where I was like, man, this track is really cool. And obviously the Cup race was crazy there. I didn't get to see the Xfinity race, but it was good to hang out with Marco Andretti down there too, and just enjoy it. But yeah, man, what a wild time. I will say that Tom Blomqvist went to the Xfinity race and didn't even let me know he was at the track. I was like, come on, Tom, I thought we were bros. But he went to the Xfinity race, which was right after the truck race instead. So shout out Tom for missing out on coming to see the homies race the trucks at noon. But also good for Tom for going to a NASCAR race. So I respect that. But anyway, Chase, it was a very exciting Cup race finish. We can talk about that real quick. Tyler Reddick, crazy ending, top 3 cars running all in the same lap. He secures his spot going to Phoenix. Michael Jordan going crazy. Very viral clips about Michael Jordan and Tyler Reddick. I mean, any clip of Michael Jordan being that happy is going to go viral. So it's got to be.
Did you hear what he called? He said, little kid drove his ass off.
Little kid.
He called him little kid.
Tyler literally has a kid.
That was, to me, the all-time quote. Right, exactly. But it's like Michael Jordan maybe calls people kid based on height. We'll put it that way.
Yeah.
But I first thought he was, because he was asked on NBC, he was like, what do you think about Denny being there? Because like, obviously if in the beginning of the week, like I was all on Denny, I was all on Ryan Blaney, right? Those are my 2 guys that I was all in on. And so to see it come out like that, they just made a great strategy call. Tyler, he kept running laps. He was waiting on that yellow, and then he had to come in. Well, lo and behold, maybe the yellow didn't come out while he was on the track at the beginning, but it did work out because Ryan and Kyle Larson is known to just go all out. He's there to rip top. Like I said, it's a big dirt guy track. And he tried to wedge it between Blaney and one of the lap cars. And when he did, unfortunately, he got loose and he spun. Now, do I think a caution should have came out for that? No, because he kept going. He got in the grass a little bit. He got it back going and he got back on the track. Now, that happens in any other series. If they're able to get back going, you don't really see that as long as they're not in the way and as long as there's no parts on the track and nobody can get hurt, right? So they throw the caution flag, which easily helps Tyler. Tyler doesn't have to pit, and he just goes straight up to the top. So now he's starting P1 on the restart. And, Homestead, you've seen it. You're starting within the top 5. That's anybody's game on a restart.
Definitely.
So it's just he had the short run car and he got it done. And what a storyline that we have now, because this is the team that brought on the lawsuit for NASCAR, and now they're going to the championship.
Yeah, what a wild story. I mean, it is crazy to think that there could be a team that hits its stride that's also suing NASCAR and might actually win the championship. I mean, it's just, it's crazy. I mean, maybe this is all big NASCAR marketing and they're doing it right. Who knows? But anyway, let's get to IndyCar. There's some really cool IndyCar stuff that happened over the weekend. Pato Award. Let's talk about it. Massive deal. We saw a lot on the internet that took place over the weekend. Pato obviously was in Mexico City, of course, for the Formula One race. He was scheduled to do the FP1 session, which again, if you're not familiar with Formula One, a lot of the Formula One teams are, they run a rookie driver or a driver in their development system in free practice one to get them some experience, to give them a chance to do something, to work with the team. In this specific race, Oliver Behrman was also driving for Ferrari. Robert Schwartzman was driving for Sauber. Felipe Jurgovic, who also recently tested an IndyCar, was driving for Aston Martin. So you had several drivers that you don't normally see. Antonelli was in the Mercedes. The young kid who's must be all of 12 years old, but I think he's 18 at least, to drive the Mercedes. He was in that car. So a lot of drivers took the chance here to be a part of that FP1 experience and gain some experience for their team. Now, there was, after this weekend and throughout the weekend, let's start with the beginning. So Pato had this deal with Kit Kat, right? Which Kit Kat, it looked like Kit Kat Mexico, obviously not Kit Kat America, but same company overall, just different divisions.
Big company.
Yeah, everyone loves Kit Kats. A lot of people love Kit Kats. I like Kit Kats. But again, major name brand with a driver, right? You could see him right on the dead center front of his helmet. So that's got to be a guarantee. Now, I don't know how much that deal will be worth. Minimum $250,000, I bet. Minimum, I think. That's just to give you kind of a, I've seen drivers do deals for $100,000 right here on the helmet before, also with some appearances. So that's kind of what that space goes for. Probably, maybe even more. But minimum that. So there was a bunch of clips of Pato doing this appearance at what looked like a mall, like some sort of mall. And again, he put this out during the week. He's like, hey, I'm going to do this meet and greet. I'm going to do this appearance at wherever it was. And so people knew about it, but I would say he probably only announced it just a day or two before. Not a huge lead time. And there started to be videos of the line to get Pato's autograph. There started to be videos of the crowds in this mall, and it looked like I don't know what it looked like. It looked like a concert.
He flooded a mall. That's what it looked like. He flooded
it's a mall, but
he flooded an entire mall.
It's like the mall if real Santa Claus showed up at Christmas, and he's everyone's there to see Santa Claus is real, and you got all the kids and the people. It was, it's one of those things.
One day notice.
Yeah, it was a very short lead time, and so and everyone's got their phone up, and you see Pato in this crowd of people, and he's by this Kit Kat sign, and Pato's kind of a small man. He's kind of a smaller human, and it's like, oh my gosh. I see Pato. He's there surrounded by thousands of people. And the craziest thing that I thought, first of all, is I was like, that's an IndyCar driver. That's it. Because what is interesting, and I put out a tweet. I saw this video and I basically just quote tweeted it because I thought at the time, I was like, this is cool. And it was late at night when I saw this too. So normally tweets don't really go anywhere when you put them out late at night. But I said, this is an IndyCar driver. This is huge. hopefully there will be more drivers that have this type of effect in the future as the series grows with #IndyCar. Now, that tweet has got more likes and more retweets than I think most of my tweets have got this year, if not in many years, and has over 300,000 impressions. Now, Mexico loved that, apparently. This is a lot of response from Mexico, his fans, IndyCar fans saying, Pato, who, you know what I mean? Like, people like, yeah, that's our guy. And I thought what was so cool about that is just thinking that this is a guy that we are all, racing against. I mean, Pato I've known since he was like 10. I literally was in a go-kart tent with Pato. He's just a little kid, like little Pato. Kind of, he was crazy back then. He's crazy now, but now he's crazy successful too. And it's truly cool to see that because we don't have that effect here in America. Like, we don't have, like, the Indy 500, that's when you feel like a superstar for sure as a driver. But I thought of this comparison, and Chase, I'm sure you see this as being accurate, but like, you could put all 27 of us at a table at an Applebee's or a Longhorn Steakhouse or a McDonald's, even if we're having a tough day. And anyone walking into that restaurant, I believe, would not know a single one of us for a large portion of that several hour period, however we're there. But
it's like a birthday party for the boys. Yeah, exactly.
But that's just kind of where we're at as a sport right now. Whereas, you could see several players in the NFL or the NBA, they can go anywhere in the country and get recognized. Formula One drivers right now, I believe, can go anywhere in the world and get recognized. They have to have like personal security. They have to fly private to places because they can't land at the airports because people are weeping when they show up. And like, but that's kind of what we just saw with Pato. Like, that is when you have a bunch of young people. Again, this is like youthful folks screaming and like, can't wait to take a picture with you, Pato. Like, that is superstardom. Like, that's what IndyCar used to be, right? That's what it was in the 80s and the 90s. And like, you had all the legends, the cool names. You had, Danny Sullivan in a beer commercial. You had Mario Andretti doing cool stuff. And I truly believe
out down
that
at the Kmart.
Exactly. Yeah. Mario, big Kmart guys, right? So this was something that I think is so important for our sport. And it kind of, I said it at the beginning, but it's almost like that Caitlin Clark effect, right? Like, Caitlin Clark brought such a massive superstar power to the WNBA and really to sport in general. It doesn't matter what sports channel it was. Remember, we're talking about Caitlin Clark. And, Pato, it doesn't matter what racetrack he goes to, Pato's getting talked about, right? Like, Pato's the guy. And thankfully, guess what? Pato also has the results to back that up too. The guy is a championship competitor, race winner. He goes out there, jumps in FP1, has a decent day with the team. Pato was 13th on the time charts. Again, FP1 is probably the last place we should ever read into timing and scoring. But, Pato can show up and do his thing. I just thought it was so fascinating. And we'll talk a little bit more. I want to get your thoughts, Chase, when you saw those videos at first. But there's been a lot of momentum every single day as we saw these videos kind of populate the internet. So what did you think when you saw it?
So the first thing that came through my mind was, I don't know how anybody in Speedway or anybody in IndyCar, or any fan, anybody out there could have any doubt that that this man is who he says he was. That was the first thing that hit my mind. The second thing that popped into my head was, okay, he's got it like that. How is he going to elevate IndyCar over this weekend? Because he didn't have to. You never have to do that, right? He's there for him. He's there for the team. He's there to live one of his dreams, getting to run a car in his country, in his place. He had a quote that he put out, and I got to meet Pato. We've had him on the show. I got to meet him in person and have a really good conversation with him this past year, and I really, really like the guy. And this quote that motorsport.com, they put a post out. He says, I mean, put this in the scenario. Put a Formula One driver in an IndyCar for practice one, and I guarantee you they don't get within 1.5 seconds of whoever the leader was. For him to say something like that, being at this F1 event over the weekend just proves how loyal he is to IndyCar. And it is so rare to find a guy like this, like you said, that can have the results to back it up and have the superstardom, but also to put a series on his back. Pato's the guy. Pato's the man for that. And it's only going to get bigger and better from here. So this was nothing but positive on all fronts, not just for IndyCar, but motorsport. Pato being one of those new guys in the ring to do that for it all, for uplifting it. So I couldn't be more ecstatic.
And I believe his quote is correct. I truly believe it. And I know we will never truly ever find out, like, okay, like Lewis Hamilton's not going to jump in for the first practice at an IndyCar race. We know that. But we have had guys...
They don't want to be proved wrong.
I mean, we have had guys that have come over that have had some decent success, and even a current Formula One driver, Kevin Magnussen, who finished in the points over the weekend, pretty decent run. Kevin Magnussen has been on the pole in a Formula One race for a team that is not the best team. And I don't know if anyone remembers Kevin Magnussen's first weekend in an IndyCar with McLaren at Road America. I was also on the grid with him, and very tough for those guys to jump in our game. So again, when I think Formula One, people will not truly understand because they think Formula One is this, upper echelon, which it is. Again, Formula One is the top level for sure. But with the cars, with the way the power steering works, with the way the cars are so dialed in just to be perfect already, and the only performance differences are just team to team, right? That Ferrari has a certain amount of speed, Red Bull has a certain amount of speed. If you're Max Verstappen, Checo, tough look for him. But I believe Pato's right, and sadly we'll never get to do that. Formula One fans will go to war with that comment all the time, but but Pato is basically our warrior. Like, he's out there just saying the truth, and he doesn't give a care at all in the world what people think about that. Because honestly, a lot of us would also say the same thing, but we would get trashed on the internet. But Pato's so famous that he doesn't really have to care about that. You know what I mean? And he's got wins. He's fast in the Formula One car. He's 13th. He's doing his job. McLaren, Zach Brown has all the respect in the world for him, I believe. We cannot lose him to Formula One, though. And that's what I have to say. I mean, Pato, I believe, is good enough to be in Formula One, but right now, we need to hope that either McLaren just want to keep their guys for forever, or Red Bull. Like, again, it's very hard because I believe that if Pato got a shot in Formula One, for sure he would go there. But as we have him in IndyCar, we need to capitalize on that. I believe he is our superstar. Now, again, in North America, there's a lot of the big Latin American population, of course, a lot of great fans that show up to every race, for Pato. A lot of, great crowds that all support, McLaren. They're wearing his gear, wearing his sombreros. Love that. And I think that's super cool. But for him to also be a superstar with just like the North American population, that's I think what is possible. And after that weekend, it's like all of a sudden it felt like, we're going racing in Mexico. That's what everyone seemed to be thinking. And all of a sudden afterwards too, like there's this Formula E and Pato and McLaren like tweet where like Pato's like taking off his helmet and like, stay tuned. And then, apparently there's going to be some sort of demo run, like where Pato brings an IndyCar to the Formula E race in Mexico in January. And I'm like, well, hey, that's great. Did all of a sudden we just trip over a race in Mexico? Like, how is this all of a sudden happening? Like, I don't know the answer to that. I think we're going to find out a lot more in the next couple of weeks. I have not been told anything personally certainly nothing that I could share with anyone, but it seemed like the vibes seemed like we're going racing. Like the vibes seemed like, we saw that. Now we're going to go racing. Cause I feel like
it's inevitable.
I think with the hype, you sell out an event for sure. Cause also race fans down in that part of the world, they also love the fact that all of the rest of us would come too, because we have a great racing series, I believe. Does it feel like that for you too?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like I said, I think it's inevitable at this point. The proof is there. The proof is on the internet in ink of what this could look like. And with IndyCar being in such a amazing position, coming off of a big press year, and looking ahead now with, Arlington coming up in 2 years, it's the perfect time to just throw some risk in there, right? And I don't really think it's much risk. I don't really think you have a lot of risk because you got to kind of see what this could bring. A lot of people in F1, what I've learned, especially in the last year, is that F1 fans, they root for teams. American race fans root for drivers. And that's the big difference, right? And so having this one guy, you could very much take IndyCar, and I know that we'll talk a little bit more about it with Kevin, but you could very much, that's sustainable, at least from what we saw over the past weekend. So I think it is inevitable. I think that we will be going to Mexico City. Now, the big question is this is one case example. How many other guys in our series, because we have a lot of guys in IndyCar that are from different countries.
Yes.
This is now, in my eyes, how do they see this, and how do they say, how do I get my country to rally around me like that? What do I need to do so that I can find a way to maybe, if this becomes the new norm, how can I get my fandom up that big in my country? And maybe that presents a case to take IndyCar there. That's where I feel like the mind shift has to come.
Yeah, I don't think we will go to all these different countries. Like I don't think we need to. But I think North America is obviously, racing in Mexico is not a stretch, right? For us, I don't believe that's a completely out of the question. America. But any other foreign nations, like the Swedish support their drivers like crazy, right? There's always passionate Swedish fans. The British love supporting their British racing drivers. We see that at the British Grand Prix all the time. That just happens because, Americans don't go to wave the American flag for the American drivers. Not normally, right? Like we have so many other sports, which I always talk about, the NBA, the NFL, the MLB, the NHL, that our attention is so diversified. Whereas most around the world, now again, this is very much generalization, but realistically, the rest of the way around the world, it's F1 and soccer as the major sports, right? And for sure that's true. People could argue a couple other things, but that's really it. Formula One is a world championship. It's massive. And motorsport in general is such that creates a buzz for motorsport that's at a very high level. So again, it's something that, we have to be thankful for. The Pato effect is incredible. If we race in Mexico, we have to think about so many other things that I don't believe, casually we consider. How much is it going to cost to get our entire series down there, right? Can it be a championship race? I really hope it is. If we go down there, it can't be an exhibition. Let's go to race for real, because I think people appreciate that more. There's got to be a promoter. There's got to be a group that can support it, because everyone has to make money for it to be successful. The series, the promoter, the track, wherever it's held. And I believe that if you can sell enough tickets, you can make money on an event, right? If you can sell enough tickets, that's the reason why you host an event. And if you have enough partnerships, billboards on the sides of the track, everything like that, that event becomes successful. And I think with the buzz around Pato, I believe you can do it. I wish there were more. I wish that, I would say at the Indy 500, it does feel amazing. Every time you walk out of the garage, there's a great crowd of people there, always wanting autographs and stuff like that. That's where we feel like superstars. But a lot of other places, in the country, realistically, we're very low level when it comes to the athlete superstar spectrum. And, Pato, I believe, is kind of getting to where he's recognizable at a very high level. So I hope we can see more drivers like that. I hope we do see that there is, drivers that really just be yourself. Because Pato has never changed. Pato is willing to talk some smack. He's willing to say his mind. And not a lot of us do that in the sport. I obviously do, but I don't have the same level of success that Pato does. But I think overall, it's just something that is exciting to see for our sport. And I hope we see more events where Pato and, let's say, Marcus Armstrong, let's say, name anyone, Alexander Rossi, Colton Herta, Kyle Kirkwood. Like, I would love to see if Kyle Kirkwood shows up to a Miami Dolphins game, they're like, whoa, people are going crazy, and they're trying to take pictures and videos with him. So that's kind of how I feel about it overall, and it's a pretty cool thing for our sport. So with that, let's get to an amazing discussion that we have about various topics in the series, IndyCar, NASCAR, F1, just a sport in general. I hope you guys enjoy it. Honestly, this is something that I believe is good to just get other people's thoughts on, because this sport needs to grow, and we'd like to get everyone's thoughts on how to grow it. So my friend Kevin is with us, and hopefully you enjoy his interview. Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to a roundtable discussion that you may or may not be familiar with. We did something like this at the beginning of the season with my friend Kevin Beck here. Kevin is a longtime friend of mine, someone who I have spent many interesting times with in my life, but also one of the greatest people that I have a lot of respect for when it comes to his opinions on motorsport. And he is also just a smart businessman, new dad as well. So very excited for him on that. And I wanted to get his thoughts on a lot of different things this year. We have a very exciting kind of next couple weeks as the off season continues to explode, and there'll be more and more news. But we kind of have to still look back at what this year was, some building points for next year. And so, Kevin, we appreciate you being here. This is our discussion. We called this the People's Podium. There were actually some people that asked to have this back. So there was, at least I can count on one hand, the amount of people that asked to have this segment back. And
it was six. It was 6 of my burner accounts. That's what it was.
There you go. 6 burner accounts asked for it. Perfect. So
we love them.
Kevin, I want to start first off because obviously we talked a lot at the beginning of the season about what this year could be, what it should be, what is the comparison between, IndyCar, Formula One, NASCAR? Where do we need to succeed? Where do we need to, continue to build and grow? But as you watch this year, and as kind of things either took off or didn't take off, I mean, I thought it was a successful year for motorsport in general, but IndyCar specifically, as you watch, what do you think was like your major takeaway from the year? Was it, hey, this is actually pretty sweet, or we're going the right direction, or what do you think?
Obviously, as a Formula One fan, I noticed that I always watch IndyCar races, but I was more interested in IndyCar this year because I was almost like, I already know what's going to happen in Formula One, right? The first half of the season was kind of just like, all right, well, like, let me watch other things. And I'll be honest with you, like we've talked about before, I don't know a lot about NASCAR.
Yes.
Just not a interest of mine, and I'm just honest about it. But the algorithm on Twitter/X was giving me a ton of NASCAR stuff.
Oh, wow.
And most of the NASCAR stuff that was coming to me, it was coming to me with like a lot of Michael Jordan stuff on it, where like I would see Jordan in the background. I was like, as a sports fan, I'm like, all right, it's kind of cool. Like I saw the other day of like him like grabbing his guy after I actually want to race this weekend.
Yeah. Yep.
Like freaked out. He's like, let's go. And it was like, that's cool to see. So like as a non-NASCAR fan, I'm like, all right, you know what? If I have to have any skin in the game, it would be with Jordan, with his team, right? So for me, it's like
big name.
Little things like that, like algorithms really do work for certain sports. And I feel like NASCAR, for whatever reason, for me, was put in my face a lot more than it ever has been this year. A lot more. I don't know if they're paying for it. I don't know what's going on, but I saw a ton of it. And I also was like more interested in watching NASCAR and IndyCar because Formula One just was getting, it was just what I expected it to be, right? So I'm like, and I also had a child. So yeah, listen, it's very, very hard, very, very hard watching a race when you got 2.5 hours of sleep. It's just like, I'm not going to watch this race because one or two guys are going to win and I don't have to really waste my time. So that was pretty much where it was at. I thought IndyCar definitely stepped up and did it and had great races when they needed to have great races especially during that summer break.
Yes.
IndyCar needs to pack out like great circuits for them. That's when you're going to steal fans. during that summer break.
You're talking about the Formula One summer break in August? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, Formula One summer break. Yeah.
Yep.
I feel like that's like when, you're going to get people watching some stuff, and IndyCar was fun this year. I mean, obviously you came back for a bunch, so I was obviously invested in it because you were back, but it was a lot of great races. And then for me, it was very, very enjoyable to see a guy like Pato O'Ward to become like circa 2019 Lewis Hamilton in a way, right?
Yes.
Like, this is all one country's talking about. And I think IndyCar fans that don't understand Formula One and say, how could Checo Perez still have a ride, can now see, like, I get it. These people spend a lot of money. This is why he still has a seat. If they're going this crazy with Pato O'Ward, it's like, let's shift it. But I also don't want to see Pato get taken out of IndyCar and then get put into Formula One seat because of the money. So it's like, there needs to be a give and take there. And I think IndyCar really needs to watch what they do with him and how they situate him in the future.
He proved ground this past weekend.
Yeah, I mean, I we're going to talk about this a lot too in the main portion of the show as well. But like the Pato O'Ward supremacy, the massive superstardom is very exciting to see. But something that I thought of and that I wanted to ask you as well is we see Formula One drivers. I think any country they go to, superstars, like they struggle to get off the planes. They like most people fly private because they would get swamped by people. And I always say that that's accredited to when you look at the rest of the world as a whole. Soccer and Formula One are really the two largest sports, right? Whereas us in America, we have the MLB, the NBA, the NFL. We have the NHL. I mean, a lot of sports that honestly more people are focused on than motorsport. And the fact that we are getting, I would say, a little bit more of that now. Like when I went to the Austin race 2 years ago, or I was at the Vegas race this year, F1 drivers in America, they used to love coming here because they could just go out to dinner, have a nice time, do whatever they wanted. Like I remember Daniel Ricciardo and I, we went to a nice barbecue place in Austin, Texas. Not one person said anything. We just walked in, had a table, had a nice dinner, and had a wonderful time. Not one person recognized a single who was. But now they can't even do that anymore. And with Pato, seeing the crowd that he had there, I mean, that has to do something for our sport. I don't know if it's going to fully, I think it takes more than one person, right? It takes all of us, as they say, in all those voting commercials. But it's one of those things that it has to look cool. Like if people see that, you're like, well, do I need to watch IndyCar? Does that put off that vibe to you as well?
I mean, me personally, I feel like if you have a country behind somebody, you kind of like want to watch them. It's kind of like how Senna was, right? It's like Senna he had a whole country behind him. So it's going to make people want to watch it, especially if it's marketed right? It can't just be the guy doing it on his own. It needs to be this.
For sure.
It needs to be the series. It has to go behind him and say, and obviously you have to sit down with the drivers and explain to them, like, guys, like, listen, if this guy brings us up, it's almost like a Caitlin Clark thing, right? Like you're in Indiana,
Yeah.
It's almost, you have someone like her in the WNBA. I'm not trying to compare the WNBA to IndyCar, but it's like, if you have a sport that you're trying to get it.
Became huge. And honestly, and people will argue this, it was because of one person. It was because of one person grew an entire sports league. And that's, and honestly, very impressive. It's crazy. So maybe Pato, is that Pato maybe our guy for that? I don't know.
I mean, if IndyCar takes the model that the WNBA used with Caitlin Clark, 100% use it and use it to your advantage and milk it, because you know what? Everybody's going to make money on it. The drivers, the teams.
Like how much time do you have though? Like I got to talk with Pato a little bit at the championship race in Nashville, and he's very aware of knowing it only takes one person to make big change. And I think he understands that he's got that responsibility, but it's just like, do you really have to have the suits, as they would say? Do you really have to have that, or can this propel itself? I'm one of those people that think that if the drivers just understand who they are and what they have going on, that they can propel it, and then the suits can kind of just see what's happening and just follow suit, no pun intended. But it's like I firmly believe that people and the drivers in the sport are waking up to it. And so that's, I guess, my question. Do you think there has to be some kind of organization behind that, or can the drivers just pull it along and you can make those those decisions kind of on the fly.
Well, in regards to a guy like Pato, like he's not getting paid like a Lewis Hamilton, right? So it's almost
he's getting
like
paid well, but definitely you're not talking about
he's not
$35 million.
Like,
Lewis
Hamilton has like, right, but Lewis Hamilton has 13th Witness, who's a fantastic photographer, travel with him all over the place. Lord knows what he's paying him, because he gets paid a lot of money to do what he does. He has this guy following him all the time. So it's almost like, well, what is Pato going to do? Pato's going to go out of his pocket and pay for videographers and pay for photographers to follow him and like build up the sport. And then,
which I think he
builds up the sport. He does. He does already on his own.
At a not quite the Lewis Hamilton level, but yes, like I think Pato is the guy who really
fuels.
Yeah, I mean he's like one of the only drivers that has his own like merch store. You know what I mean? And he's very active on that. Which again, you have to do that. Like you got to make money every way you can make it. And he is the one who I think not only is smart, or maybe his management is also smart, but he is taking advantage of every possible opportunity. I mean, the guy's selling sombreros, giant sombreros at the racetrack that are like Pato Award themed. Like that's so smart. So smart.
So smart.
On brand, maybe.
You have to do that.
On brand.
I don't know, Kevin. I don't know if you saw the comments though from Mark Miles that the kind of people were saying, why don't we have a race in Mexico? You know, why don't we have this, that, and whatever? And Mark Miles like compared Pato to Adrian Fernandez for some reason. Like he said, Adrian Fernandez was very famous as well in Mexico. And I was like, and there was a huge debate. Like Pato even made merch about it. Like, I don't know if you saw Zach Brown over the weekend wearing the Pato Who hat because
Who had a start. Yeah.
It's very funny. And Pato got a billboard with Pato Who on it in Speedway, Indiana, which is just, again, it's like he's not only like the king of the memes on the internet and he plays into what pops off on the internet really well, but this whole idea of having a race in Mexico, I mean, that's something that I wanted to talk to you about because this is a big deal for us. But I don't know if IndyCar actually and I think it would be fun to race in Mexico as long as everyone makes money. Because again, is one person enough to where a promoter is going to pay $50-60 million to host an event, which honestly, it looks like that event there seems to be a lot of momentum, but is that something that you think is exciting for an IndyCar series? Like you're like, oh shoot, now they're going to Mexico. Do you think that elevates our level a little bit? I'm just curious.
Yeah,
like
I mean, listen,
a bit more of an international events.
Yeah.
Like, do you think that elevates the level?
I think it elevates the level, but also like knowing the back end of IndyCar, knowing that a lot of these teams have very, very small margins to do anything. So it's like,
yes.
If you're going to have a team and go down to Mexico, like you can't expect these small teams to pay for it to bring themselves down that are racing this race. Like IndyCar needs to pay for all of that.
Yes.
If you want to build the brand for you, IndyCar, you need to pay for every team to go down there. You can't expect the team that's paying drivers pennies to go down there, and then now you're saying, guys, it's going to cost you $400 to ship your stuff down there. They're going to say, well, even if we win, what am I going to get? $50,000. So it's a lose-lose.
Yeah,
it's a lose-lose for me. It only makes sense on something like that if IndyCar is willing to invest in transportation and everything for the teams, and then take care of all the logistics. If you want to go try a new place, no problem. Let's go there. But if you're not going to pay for it for us, what's the point? Because at the end of the day, it's a business. So I don't want to see the Pato Award, thing go crazy, and then now there's a race in Mexico, and then two teams don't exist next year because they had to go to that race and they lost $500,000, and now they have no money. So what are they going to do?
Sponsorship for an event umbrella is going to be the best way. Like find some way to get, a couple of big name sponsors. The series goes after them to kind of carry the weight. And I firmly agree with you on that because the same thing with NASCAR too. Yeah, I don't know how NASCAR is going to be chopping their stuff up. They're going to Mexico City as well going into next year. So they were the second series that announced, or really the first American-based series that was just like, hey, we're doing this too. I don't know how everything's going to work out with that, and they've got their own fish to fry right now with this lawsuit that they're going to have going on, which I'm sure you've heard about, that has to do with Michael Jordan and NASCAR that they're suing them. But I firmly think that it shouldn't take much to get a couple of sponsors the series can go after. Pato could probably even help with that, because he does understand his role and he understands that he wants to see the entire series grow. I mean, he just announced he was doing a Formula E race, and he still tagged IndyCar
not
on the
not
top
doing a
of
Formula
it.
E race. He's there.
Okay.
That is part of what. So Formula E is racing there in January, and they're doing like an IndyCar demo there, like a demo lap. And I think what this, I honestly, and I actually had someone say to me the other day, and this might be a controversial topic, but like, oh, there's going to be 18 races next year, and I was like, wait, what? So I don't know if they're already planning on adding an event, but what I have been impressed about is the fact that there does seem to be someone acting upon this, and the fact that there's some sort of conjuncting or like coagulating with Formula E. That's kind of weird, but it's also not terrible, because if they already have an event there and then we're willing to go down and put an IndyCar there, because McLaren also has a team in Formula E, so maybe there's like, all right, cool, we're going to at least use this as a demo. Do I think one driver can sell enough tickets? That's what they have to be dependent on, right? Because if you're going to pay the series, let's say it costs $100 million to have all the IndyCar teams fly down, right? That promoter has to be able to sell at least $100 million worth of tickets. So how expensive are these tickets going to be? How many people can we fit in? Because honestly, I don't think you'll find a problem with populating that event. I really don't. I think if there's an IndyCar race there, or if they try to combine it with like Formula E, I for sure think you're going to sell out that event for whatever price you could get. So that I think is the interesting thing, is like, who can you find a promoter? Because it's about the promoter and the event sponsor for sure. But I for sure believe that one person, this type of energy, can sell that type of an event. I believe that. And I don't know what you guys think.
If the support race is there, it'll sell out. Yeah. If the support race is there, it'll sell.
Yeah, I mean, maybe
IndyCar's got to find a way to and they got to find a way to like stretch it now from a 2-day ticket to a 3-day ticket. Like, you guys practice two or three times on Friday, practice in the morning, qualify Saturday, practice Saturday, qualify Saturday, and then race on Sunday. And
it has to be a points race.
Maybe
it can't be an exhibition race. It has to be a real legitimate, like, big podium, like everyone's there for a reason. And again, I think we all always think that it's way easier to make this happen than it is. Like, I'm sure the logistics could be a nightmare. Where is everyone going to stay? What's all the security like? All that stuff. There's way more to it than we are assuming. But one guy, I believe, like, we've seen that one woman can for sure launch the WNBA into the stratosphere of multi-million-dollar contract, huge support, like viewership that is literally like if IndyCar got that type of viewership that the WNBA got this year, like, we would be crying in happiness. Everyone would be weeping with the amount of like happy tears that there would be. So,
I mean, like, a guy like you were in Indiana. Like, how crazy was it there for you when she was there? I mean, I'm in New York and people are still talking about her here, but like, you were almost like, if you were taking the same scenario of Caitlin Clark in Indiana and Pato Award Mexico, like, how crazy was Indiana about her being there? Was it like,
I mean, it's
really
absurd.
about the game tonight? Like,
I mean, tickets for the games were outstanding. So not only do you see the revenue for the team go up, because you used to be able to get tickets very cheap to WNBA game, right? And then now it was like people were getting floor seats for like $300, $400, $500 a game, and I'm like, oh my gosh, that's insane. You know what I mean? Like, that's crazy. But again, people wanted to go. It was must-see television. It was must-see activities, and I respect that. Walk into every single gas station in Indiana, there's a merch stand for Caitlin Clark, right? We're going to buy Caitlin Clark koozies. We're going to buy all that stuff. And you know who the only person, IndyCar driver-wise, that I see in gas stations sometimes? Pato. So, maybe that's our guy. You know what I mean? I think it's possible. I really do. I would hope that there's more drivers that can be a part of this ride up to stardom, but I truly believe that one driver might be the one to make a difference because of what we've seen across the spectrum of sport so far this year. I think so.
It gets it started.
Yeah. So, Kevin, one other thing that I wanted to talk about as well. I don't know if you saw the announcement with like the Dallas Cowboys, Jerry Jones, and our Arlington Street Race and everything there. Like, I assume that to you, like, I assume to anyone that looked very professional. Like that was like, hey, this is something that looks like it's got the right people involved and a very high level business wise. Did it give off that vibe to you as well?
When I saw that come out, I said to myself, IndyCar is finally okay with having another big race besides the Indianapolis 500.
Oh, wow. All right. That's good.
Yeah.
That's big.
That's what it felt like. It felt like
That's a big
I saw that,
plate.
and I said, you know what? Ask anybody at IndyCar, they're like, oh, the 500, the 500. I'm like, you guys know there's a whole series, not just that one race, right?
Yes.
It felt like that was like, hey, guys, like, we're going to do this. Like, we're going to do this. We're going to do it right. We're not going to go to some other track that was built in the 60s and fix it up a little bit and do a whole thing. I saw the track layout. I saw like the build up beforehand. And then once I saw the rendering, I was like, that's cool.
The
like,
rendering was
really
big. See? So that rendering, a lot of people were like, oh, it costs a lot of money to do that, but it's very important to do that. That same rendering.
A lot of money to do it.
Exactly. That same rendering was done for the Miami race as well. And so they used the same group of people. And again, you got to paint this picture that it looks cool. That's the thing.
Tech is hot. Tech is hot right now. I don't care what anybody says. Tech is hot right now.
You need to have it. And also, like, not for nothing, at the end of the day, they could probably pre-sell tickets now and people will probably buy them.
Yeah, I agree. Well, they have also access to so many. Well, they have season ticket holders for the Rangers, for the Cowboys that like they're going to give access to, right? You have a whole ton of people that might not have been exposed to an IndyCar race before, which I think is huge, massive.
I mean, that race really looks that's. I actually want to go to that race. I saw it and I was like, what's that? 2 years, right? 26.
26. Yeah. Yeah.
26. Yeah. I was like, figure, my kid will be 3. I could take him.
There you go.
I'm like, all right. Like I would go to that because Texas is a great place to go to. Because listen, as a race fan, you got to also factor in not just going to a race if it's going to be good or not, but there's a lot of factors that are involved, right? Are the flights going to be super expensive? Are hotels expensive? Yes. Dallas is a huge city. It can take that on and not act like, oh, Jesus Christ. Now, hotels, you can't get them. St. Pete, I don't even know if St. Pete's even there anymore. I haven't checked the news lately after the hurricane.
That's tough. Yeah.
So, like,
I assume it is.
That race, yes,
you can't blow St. Pete out the way, dude. You've been down there. That's a wild place.
Yeah. St. Pete is great, but I'm also like, when you go down there and you want to stay in St. Pete, the hotel rooms are very, very expensive. I've done it twice before. They're very expensive. So at least looking at like Arlington, because we're not calling it the Dallas race, we're calling it Arlington, right?
Yep.
It seems like they have the capacity to hold this amount of people and not have an issue and not price gouge fans. Because that's the one thing I feel like all motorsport fans like to bitch about now. It's not about the races, it's not about this, not about that. It's about, soda's $26. That's all they bitch about is just prices.
Yep. But at a Formula One race, they're selling T-shirts for $180 a piece, which is crazy at the Formula One races.
But insane. You can go to a 5-star dining experience at a Formula One race for like $1,000, dude. You could do that there. I mean, that right there. What a perk, dude. That's what I go for, honestly.
I mean, I just want a hot dog and a pretzel. That's all I care about.
I know. Yeah. We want a nice seat to watch the race.
That's it. Yeah, I feel that race will make it for IndyCar, like, big time. And not for nothing, even if you guys don't get a race in Mexico, I mean, like, Dallas is kind of close.
There you go. There you go. Yeah.
Texas?
Not too far.
I mean, listen, you know what? And not for nothing, if they want to save on logistics, do Arlington and do Mexico right afterwards. And then just go right over the border and just do what you got to do.
Yep.
Don't go
that's
like
a beautiful string right there, because that's just straight down.
Yeah.
I like
that would be nice.
I really do. I think we're going to get it. I mean, honestly, I even before Pato went down to Mexico with F1, I already kind of had this thing in the back of my mind where it's just when you see a certain person, I don't know if you guys are this way, but if you see a certain person that has that kind of credibility like Pato, that has the confidence in their tone and what they're saying, it's almost like, for me, when I see that confidence bleeding out on a video or in a press conference, whatever they're saying, I'm like, this is going to come to fruition. I don't know when, I don't know how, but it's like that power of just the insane belief that the man has in himself. It's like, I don't want to bet against that. And so I think this just solidifies it even more. Now, when we get the announcement, I don't know, but I definitely think it's coming.
I truly believe that there is a lot in the works at a very high rate of speed, because again, I've always thought if you like, when folks have a lot of money or when if a really large business wants to do something, they're going to make it happen as soon as possible, right? So like if all of a sudden there's this huge draw, you're riding like draw of people, attention to Pato, you're riding this social media wave of momentum. Why not capitalize right now when everyone is still talking about it? Because every single person that tweets me when I like responded to all the Pato videos over the weekend, they're like, we need a race. Like, this is crazy. This is so cool. So like, I think if the powers that be find it to like be the right time to do it, and they like, if you have enough money, you can just make anything happen. It's just like, yep, that's it. All right, we're going to do that. Or if we find someone who's like, this is awesome, we got to make this happen, it'll happen. So I'm hoping that it does, but I don't know anything yet, but I think in the next couple of weeks, it'll be very, very interesting to see what happens.
Who is Pato's main sponsor? Yeah. Who's his sponsor?
Well, I mean, he himself. No, I mean they've got McLaren, so like he's got everyone on the team. You know, whether it's Arrow, whether it's any of their partners, those are the main partners there. But like he himself has a deal with like Electrolyte, you know, that drink that's like hydration. He seems to pump them like really aggressively, and so that's like his main partner. But he also just did a deal with Kit Kat, right? That's a huge brand. Like Kit Kat was on his helmet in Mexico.
Dude,
that's
I had a Kit Kat this weekend because of that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So he's definitely.
I was wondering if you had like a Telmex guy or like, you know what I mean, like a big telecom company in Mexico, like, you know, like some F1 guys have like, you know, like Checo's people probably like, hey, let's get, if Checo's out next year or whatever he is, we got to get another guy. So
yeah. Yeah, I think it'll be.
He's got to bring in, if he could bring in a major sponsor like a fast food chain or something else. Like if he's getting Kit Kat now, who's to say that, you know, you can't reach out and get a fast food chain or you can't get a Fortune 500 company to bring into IndyCar? And especially now, too, another thing
shouldn't be his responsibility, but like he should give
no,
to use.
But if
yeah.
What's wrong with taking initiative, though? I mean, I guess that's the way that I see it. And I mean, maybe that's hard. I don't know. But the one thing about taking initiative, Kevin, I did want to ask you as well. We were talking about the Arlington Grand Prix. I'm sure you've been watching a little bit of Saturday, Sunday football. Have you seen a lot of the Fox stuff that they're doing right now? They're like already promoting IndyCar like now. Mm-hmm. I mean, how big of a thing? Because I've had a lot of people that don't even watch racing hitting me up, being like, "Dude, like, what is this open wheel? Like, the F1's coming to America? Like, that's what they're hitting me up." Like, people, my friends that I have that are big ball sports guys, that don't really mingle in anything that I do personally, but they're asking me those questions, and I'm like, "Yeah, here we go." This has the opportunity. I feel like maybe not so much with F1 leaving them out, but we're getting to this point now where I feel like Fox could potentially build it up so high to where we could be right on the cusp of rivaling with NASCAR. And that's where, if we can get to that level, I feel like that's the next place to go.
Well, that's huge.
Is we can get level ground with them.
I agree. Because I feel that, I mean, the contract with Formula One with ESPN is for, I don't even know how much longer that's for. So it makes sense for them to be like, hey, let's get something that's just like it, because most people don't know the difference.
True.
And we could sell the same product for cheaper and then push it to them for a quarter of the price and make more money. So
that's business.
But like we spoke about months ago, I feel like IndyCar is still missing that gambling edge to it.
Yes,
that's what American fans like now. American sports fans like to gamble. That's all it is. If you figure out a way to get gambling better for IndyCar, you're going to have more people watching it, just not even because they like the sport, just because they got money on it. That's the only reason why they're going to watch it.
So
we need a little bit more data collection. If we get more data collection, we're in, dude. And so that's the one thing that I've been looking at a lot this offseason is how do you get that data collection there? And then how do you frame it? Like I don't think IndyCar even has a gambling. I did some conversations, and I would love to see IndyCar get that gambling department. If they do get that gambling department so they can do that networking with the big boys out in Vegas, then it's full throttle. There's nothing that's going to hold us back in 2025 once that's implemented.
Yeah, that would be big. That would be big for sport in general. Like it is big for sport in general. But Kevin, there's one other thing that I wanted to talk about that was there was a big controversy over the Penske cheating scandal throughout at the beginning of the season. Two Penske drivers, Joseph and Scott, getting disqualified. And we didn't talk to you after that, but that was something this year that, it was a huge story because, again, Roger Penske is the head of IndyCar. his team, but like they also got penalized more aggressively than anyone else. Like, what's your take on that? Because like I hear from people every day. There are people that still boo Joseph and his child as they go by, and like they're saying like he's a terrible person, he's cheating, and like, I mean, it's also just hysterical. But like, you know, the poor family's getting absolutely crucified every time they walk around. But he's also, you know, I mean, Joseph's a very nice guy, one of my closest friends. So like, I obviously see that they were penalized very aggressively. But in sport, I do believe you need this type of controversy as well, because it gives people something to get fired up about. I mean, what do you think?
I mean, so was it a gas tank issue? Is that what it was?
No, it was a push to pass. They were using push to pass when they weren't allowed.
The push to pass, electronics. Right.
Yeah.
And they were adding like more time to it, I believe. What was the thing again? There was
basically they were able to use it when no one else was able to use it.
Gotcha. Okay.
Cheat code.
My feelings on that situation was, when I first saw it, was, well, it had to be so blatant that the boss got caught that they had to do something about it.
Oh yeah.
And at that point, you have to really penalize a team for it. And at the second part of it, I feel like it's also, as a race car driver, you know, you're going to take any advantage you have.
Of course, yeah.
And if you're going to get away with it, I mean, that's Formula One for you. You know, that's any race for you. If somebody puts a different piece of aero on a car and then they figure out 7 races later, that's really not legal. Well, you can take away my points. No, you can keep them, but you can't do it anymore. Oh, okay. Yeah. That's what racing is. I mean, that's what we're looking at. So, and a lot of parts,
there's an F1 team. There's an F1 team cheating almost every weekend, it seems like, and then all of a sudden down the road they get found out, and then they're like, all right, well, we had it while we lasted.
I mean, racing is just doing it until you get caught, and if you get caught, you get caught. You don't get caught, you don't get caught. I mean, everybody knows that, and the fact that people think that the drivers know what's going on half the time. They're probably even like saying like, oh, you can just press the button whenever you want. Like, okay, sure, like it's going to work. And then it works. You're like, oh, and then it worked again.
It was
a new feature.
Yeah.
You know, like, so I don't know. I mean, like, I personally don't feel like you get mad at the drivers for it. It's kind of like, well, hey, we got away with it. Like, it is what it is. I mean, but I do think it's very odd that the owner of the league is a team owner as well. And he's still in it, right? Like if he was just Roger Penske, rich guy, I have a team, I don't go to the races, I don't care, then fine, I get it. But if you're Roger Penske, and the way he is, you can't. You have to. There needs to be some separation there. I feel like there needs to be some separation, because Formula One had an issue last week when they gave a penalty to Max and they didn't penalize Lando as hard, because one of the stewards, his dad owned I think his father was part of McLaren, and they said left car white didn't do it. One of those things again. It's like, oh, here we go. But but anybody that knows people in racing and has talked to the drivers before, you know, this whole sport is based off of who you know and who you know and who you know, because that's why you're racing. I mean, let's call it what it is. It is what it is. Do I feel that people should be yelling at these guys and being mad at them? Like, whatever. I mean, come on. I don't want to say it's not his fault. Like, find out the guy who put the steering wheel together, made the code. Be mad at him.
Yeah,
that's passion. Yeah, it's like, do you not think Roger Penske knows how to delegate and manage? Like, do you think Roger called that morning and was just like as Pat McAfee said, let him hit the NOS as many times as he wants, you know?
Yeah.
Like, no, like Roger Penske's delegating and managing. No.
Yeah.
But people will like look at Roger and be like, you're a cheater. Like, you know, point at him. It's like, dude, Roger's just like sitting there just trying to eat an ice cream cone like by himself, dude. You know, he's just hanging out. Like, and so, the fans I completely agree.
Right.
He's
what the fans don't realize is that
which is important.
What the fans don't, I think, realize is that, like, Roger is so good for the sport and so good for IndyCar.
This is true.
Because he's a guy with deep pockets that's like, hey, what do we have to do? Okay, let's do it. You're not going to have, like, I got to speak to my board and speak to 25 different people. Like, he's going to do it. He's going to do it. If it makes sense, let's do it.
Yeah, I mean, multiple series. He is the king of like owning race car teams. Honestly, you look like how many series is he in now? He's got they're in Formula E from what I saw. they're in NASCAR, they're in IndyCar. It's just
yeah.
They're in World Endurance Championships. They go to Le Mans. They go to they're everywhere.
Yeah. I mean, again, I think what it created and the, I guess people love to try to hate on IndyCar. It's like the fun thing to do on the internet for some reason, because like we are the little guy right now. Like the Indy 500 is not, but our series, like, you know, it's easy to pick on, of course. But you know, it was a wild controversy, and honestly, like, I'm glad it's passed now. But I was I was even scared to just dive back into it right now. But I wanted to hear what you had to say, because I could see you with a funny smile on your face when you read that headline, because I know you. I'm like, oh man, this is crazy. because it was such a massive headline, and it created a huge buzz around for the series. And, you know, positive or negative, probably split in half, but more negative maybe, but it is what it is. You're always going to have controversy in sport. That's part of sport.
It kicked off putting us in the spotlight, I'll tell you that much, because I feel like we were in the spotlight more than I've ever seen IndyCar in the spotlight. I don't think I've seen IndyCar in the spotlight this much ever since I've been watching racing. So yeah, it's been it was an incredible year. So regardless whether it was negative or positive, it definitely helped kick off the it turned the spotlight on. Put it that way.
I thought it was good. I thought it was good for you guys. Listen, any press is good press. I don't care what it's for. But the thing is this: if it wasn't a Penske team and it was a smaller team, nobody would have given a shit, and it would not have been on the news anywhere. Nobody would have said anything.
I would agree. Yeah, well, I would definitely agree. It would have been slightly minimized. Yeah. Now, Kevin, before I let you go, do you have any questions for us after the year? Is there anything that you would like to know after the year, or anything in particular? Because I think this has been a great discussion. I've enjoyed kind of going at it and seeing what's going on, and just having a chat about the sport.
Chase, a question for you. Where do you think this whole thing ends up with Jordan and NASCAR?
Oh,
honestly, they are so stacked up. I've done a couple of I've had some takes on it, and I mean, personally, I think this is going to be drug out like most lawsuits are. Now it's going to be even more interesting if Tyler finds a way to win the championship now that he's locked in from winning at Homestead. But this is huge, not just for NASCAR, but I think that this is going to, if let's say 2311 does win, right? And I do think they have a favorable case. NASCAR is basically right now the only thing that they're doing is they're coming in and finding where they messed up on their initial on the initial document that they sit in. They're looking through language, and they're finding ways that they can go ahead and hurt them early. Is what they've been doing, but that's because of their own mistakes that they made. 2311 and FRM. But once this thing gets kicked off and they're able to present evidence and show, there's already so much evidence where NASCAR basically only gave them like 3 hours to accept terms. That's not long enough for a lawyer to look over anything. Okay. There's a lot of sketchy stuff going on. I do think that these two teams can come out on top. And if they do, it's going to be revolutionary, not just for NASCAR, but for all racing. I had some conversations with an IndyCar driver that wasn't Connor, and about 2 weeks ago, and talking with him about it, it was one of those deals where even he sees it being something that every series is going to look at and be like, okay, well, now that this has happened with NASCAR, we've got to figure out how we're going to deal with a charter system. Right. We're going to have to figure out what our steps are going to be. And with IndyCar having that new charter system now, let's say this does go through, 2311 FRM does win. What kind of impact does that have on this charter system being on the ground floor starting out? Like, this could make it a way better situation for everyone. Yeah. So I do think that they have a great case built, 2311 and FRM. And while NASCAR has historically been known to just completely blow anybody out of the water in a courtroom, I do think that this is the match where they're probably sweating a little bit. They're a little bit nervous because there's just a lot of things in it from a legal standpoint where a judge could easily see where, okay, this isn't the best business practices from an organization like NASCAR.
Right.
It's going to be interesting.
Very interesting take.
Definitely going to be interesting.
Connor, what's good? My one question for you, Connor, is probably what the fans want to know as well. Is what's in the horizon? What's going on next year? What are you thinking? How's it looking?
Oh gosh, Kevin, well, I'd like to send you a proposal if you care to offer me $4 or $5 million. We'll have it all sorted out by next week. So it's
got to find $5 million, dude.
We are working, Kevin. We are, a lot's going on in the last like 2 or 3 days, but we're a tough sled out there.
You got mom on the road knocking on doors?
Oh, mom's out here going like she's basically trick or treating, but with like contracts. Like, hey, would you like to sign $1 million to help my son achieve his dreams?
That's innovation right there, baby.
That's what she's trying to do. But I kid you not. Every day I'm calling people, and I have gone to. You get to that point where you start asking, people that it's just in your network. You know what I mean? We've met a lot of people in our lives, and it's like, hey, yeah. I even, had a communication this week with, a guy that used to, you remember Justin, who used to work with Steve Aoki and Marshmallow back in the day? Yes. Like, just try to, hey, Justin, what do you got for me? Like, is there any maybe connections? You got, like, I'm just trying to find anyone who might have any interesting conversation, and motorsport seems to be hot right now. So I don't know. The only issue is timing. I don't know if we have enough time. So we'll see.
Right.
We'll see. If we run out of time, then we're just going to have 900 sponsors on our Indy 500 ride only, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah. So if you don't get that for that ride, then you're still going to do Indy and just get the money for an IndyCar seat.
Oh, I don't know. Honestly,
Indy 500 seat.
The Indy 500, I think, is for sure something that is doable. Hopefully that's kind of not a worry, which is good. But I'm focused on trying to get that season with JHR and we'll see, man. I would love to make it happen. It would feel nice. So we'll see.
I know.
We'll see. Well, Kevin,
we got to get Spotify. The colors match. Call them.
Yes, of course. I told you, anytime you guys need me, I'm around.
No, this was great. I honestly feel like time flew by because I enjoy just talking about motorsport, and I hope people will appreciate this too. I'm not sure what people are interested in listening to, and in a closing in on Halloween. Who knows? But we appreciate you, and thanks, man. We'll honestly would love to chat when we get into the preseason for next year on like, hey, what happened during the winter, and where are we now? So we'll see.
I feel like everybody's saying, remember to vote.
Vote
early.
Oh yeah, that's
the votes.
Vote for IndyCar, please, and their TV deal. Yeah.
Yes. Just go to the bottom.
Write them in. Write them
just write in your own thing. Just write in Pato Award.
Oh my gosh!
Nominate Pato for president.
Yeah. Now the show is really taking off. All right, Kevin. Thank you.
All right, guys. Have a go. Later, Kevin. Later, bro.
Well, folks, I hope you guys enjoyed that. I did. Our time flew by. Great discussion. Feel free to throw us some comments on what you thought, and we always want to continue the discussion on the YouTube comments, on the Twitters, on the Instagrams, whatever it is. Feel free to just let us know, and tell a friend to listen on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcastings. And then on the YouTubes as well. We appreciate a lot of folks. A lot of folks listen to the Haley Dean interview as we expected. It was definitely the most viewed episode that we've had on YouTube, which I wasn't surprised about. And shout out Haley for actually sharing the show, because a lot of the drivers that we have on this show don't share it, which I don't really understand why. But
you've been called out.
But we appreciate the share. Just share us to the new crowd. We're trying to grow this show. We're trying to extend the arms of IndyCar. So anyway, with that, if you're new here, you're probably just now tuning into your very second ever Ricky Treadway Random Indy 500 Driver of the Week.
The greatest event of its kind that's ever been run on.
Let's meet the drivers. Who will make up the field?
This week, we found a great one. I feel good about this one. I went to the 1936 Indy 500. Just happened to trundle along to the 1936 Indy 500. The 1936 race was won by Louis Meyer, but the sixth place finisher, strong day, Ray Pixley finished sixth. And again, I love when I find this. This was Ray's only Indy 500 start because sadly he was killed later this year. but he was primarily a sprint car driver. William Raymond Pixley, born in 1907. Pixley competed in the 1936 Indy 500 for Clarence Felker, driving in a Miller that had once sported a V16 engine, but at the time was powered by a Miller four-cylinder. And that would be his only race because he was killed later that year in Hammond, Indiana. So sadly, Ray died when he was 29 years old. Very short life, but that's kind of wild. Like, still a great. I mean, to start 25th, finish 6th in your very first Indy 500. Who knows what Ray Pixley could have been? So shout out Ray. That's wild. Ray Pixley,
the man, the myth, the legend.
Yeah,
Pixley. I was going to say, like, when I heard his last name, I thought about Pixie Sticks when I heard his last name. Do you remember Pixie Sticks, the candy?
Oh man,
just like you just get real hopped up on some Pixie Sticks, dude, and just get it, dude.
Absolutely.
I feel like that's how he finished 6th.
Yep,
it was the
Ray
Pixie
Pixley.
Sticks, dude.
So anyway, that was really cool. I love finding drivers that have only had one Indy 500 start, and so Ray Pixley is our guy this weekend. R.I.P. Ray. Shout out, great finish. Both Ray and I have the exact same best finish at the Indianapolis 500. So both 6th place is our best result. So we gotta. Thankfully I can still improve that. So we'll see. But anyway, folks, we appreciate you guys listening. Next week we have a great guest. Next week I do have finally confirmed Dario Franchitti. I don't know if you've heard a rap song about Dario Franchitti. I have. We might be singing it at the time. We don't want to get taken down because of any copyright strikes, but Dario Franchitti will be with us next week. According to my text conversation with him, he might have a big weekend and forget about us, but Dario's a good guy. So Dario will be with us next weekend.
Lost in the woods, Dario.
Can't wait to talk to Dario, and then that'll be a lot of fun. So please subscribe to the channels. Leave us a like, a rating, a comment, or whatever you feel like, and hopefully we'll be able to interact. So until next week, stay tuned to all the news in the world of racing. We shall see what's going on, but we'll talk to you next week on Speed Street. Hey everyone, Connor Daly here. Please leave a like on this video if you did enjoy it, and also subscribe to the channel as well. That would be very helpful. Be a friend, tell a friend. Thank you so much for the support, and we'll see you on the next episode of Speed Street.